Surface area and volume of a sphere. I want to bring your attention. The first thing we're going to go over is the surface area of a sphere, which is not found on your reference sheet. So this is one that you are going to have to remember. It is very similar to the area of a circle. You remember area of a circle is pi r squared. The surface area of a sphere, 4 pi r squared. All right, again, not on your reference sheet, so this is one you're going to have to remember. And at any time during the video today, we go to do an example, pause it, see if you can do it on your own, play the video, see how the work came out, and see if it matched yours. First one, surface area of the sphere here. You see the radii, 14 inches. So simply plugging it into the formula provided above, 4 pi r squared, 4 pi radius of 14 squared. Round your answer to the nearest tenth. And again, you guys can stop the video and restart it whenever you want. I prefer that versus just copying down the numbers I've already crunched out. 2,463.0 square inches. Okay, in the next example, something very similar to the first one, but I don't give you the radius. Instead, I give you the diameter. So now I'm going to cut that 7.5 and put 3.5 squared. And again, stop the video so you can crunch your own numbers. 153.9 square meters. So basic, just finding the surface area given a radii or diameter. All right, something a little different now. If you read through number 3, I do not give you the radius nor the diameter. Instead, I'm going to give you the circumference of this rubber ball, aka a sphere. You're just going to start seeing that more and more. It may not come out to be sphere. It might be some type of ball, tennis ball, basketball, in this case, a rubber ball. The circumference is 20 pi. So if we look back at our surface area formula at 4 pi r squared, the only value I need is the radius. Can I get that using circumference? You're darn right I can. If you remember the circumference formula, it was pi d. So if I can solve for d and then cut that in half, I can plug that in for the radius. So my circumference again, 20 pi, I plug that in for c, equals pi d. As we've talked in the past, we have pi's on both sides. They will cancel each other out. So 20 is equal to your diameter length. So the radius length will be 10. So I come back over to my surface area formula, 4 pi, 10 squared. Look back at the directions. There are no rounding directions. I'm going to keep it simple for you guys so we don't have to write out everything. Leave your answer in terms of pi. So go ahead, crunch the numbers, pause the video, leave your answer in terms of pi. We should end up getting 400 pi. And remember, we are doing area, not volume, so that's why I keep squaring my units. Okay? Questions at all on the surface area? Go back, look over anything you need to right now before we go to volume. Volume of a sphere, you can take a look on your formula sheet if you need to. That formula is given. The volume of a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. All right, it's a lot involved there. So good thing they give us this formula on the reference sheet. I'm just going to make a little comment. You guys know where I stand as far as using your calculator and fractions. If you're going to find the volume, highly recommend you put that 4/3 in a fractions template. All right, highly recommended. All right, so find the volume of each sphere. Part A says leave your answer in terms of pi, then convert it in part B to the nearest tenth. All right, so here we go. Part A, leave it in terms of pi. We got 4/3 pi r cubed. And as we can see, that 40 is pointing to the radius. So I'm just going to simply plug it into my formula. Pi 40 cubed. And I know people still have issues with this algebraically. Leave it in terms of pi. Take the pi, put it right in your answer now. What's left? The 4/3 times 40 cubed. I'm going to do that right in my calculator. Okay, right into my calculator. See if my calculator can put it into a fraction or back into a fraction. And you can pause the video again. Come on back when you think you have the answer in terms of pi. I have 85,333 1/3 pi centimeters cubed. Make sure it's cubed because it's volume. We're going back to volume now. Be careful from surface area to volume. So that's why I cubed the units. If you had another type of fraction that's the same as 85,333 1/3, fine. That's fine. All right. I just asked it in terms of pi, so don't write out a full decimal. Now take that answer, now write it as rounded to the nearest tenth. And now you go into your calculator right now, divide those, put the pi now. So you're going to do 85,333 1/3 times pi. Round that number to the nearest tenth. Go right ahead. And there it is, rounded to the nearest tenth. And for part B, no radius now, but I do give you the diameter. So the volume is going to be 4/3 pi. Cut that 3 in half. Get 1.5 cubed. Again, leave it in terms of pi first. Leave the pi in your answer. Multiply 4/3 times 1.5 cubed. And I'm hoping that gives you 4.5. Check it, please, on your own. Just don't start writing down what I am writing down. Make sure you can do this in your calculator. And then turn it into the nearest tenth. So I do 4.5 times pi, round to the nearest tenth, 14.1 cubic centimeters. All right, so a little work with volume and surface area. Now what I'm going to go to in the next couple questions is actually use both at the same time. Volume of a sphere, 36 pi. Find its surface area. All right, so we go back to the surface area formula. 4 pi r squared. What is the only value I need to complete the formula? The only thing I need is the radius. Can I get the radius using the volume formula? Well, let's work together here. Volume, 4/3 pi r cubed. I told you the volume was 36 pi. I plugged that in for V. And what variable am I trying to solve for so I can plug it back into the surface area? My radius. So let's try to get the radius all by itself. All right, what do we have on both sides? We have pi's on both sides. See you later. 36 equals 4/3 r cubed. Still trying to get that r by itself. So we have a couple options. We can divide both sides by 4/3, or we can multiply both sides by the reciprocal 3/4. That gives me r cubed is equal to 27. Now, this is the first time some people may be experiencing a cubed and not a squared. Because if it was a square, I would take the square root of both sides and get after it. But now it's a cube. So instead, what I'm going to have to do is not take the square root. I'm going to take what's called the cube root of both sides. And let me show you where that is on your calculator right now. Just give me a second to get it up. Okay, so on your calculators right now, you'll go over to Math. You'll hit your Math button, and you will see, if you scroll down to choice number 4, that is taking the cube root of any number. All right, so go to choice number 4, cube root, and we are taking the cube root of 27, and that tells me it is 3. All right, so again, Math, choice 4 if you need to take the cube root of any number. So I go back. R is equal to 3. So I take that answer of 3. I go back to my surface area. 4 pi times 3 squared. And we'll just leave it in terms of pi so we don't have to write out the full decimal. We end up with 36 pi, since it's surface area, square inches. And if you're wondering, yes, it was just a coincidence that the volume and the surface area came out to 36 pi, but they're not equal to each other because one's in cubic units and one's in square inches. Square inches, yep. So 2 different types of units. All right, 4. Now I'll give you the volume. Find just the radius now. Find the radius. We don't need the surface area. So get our volume formula, 4/3 pi r cubed. The volume is 4,200 equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. We're solving for the radius. Now, the big difference between this one and the previous problem is the pi's won't cancel out on each side because there's just a pi on the right and no pi over here on the left. All right. So instead, we're going to have to deal with that pi sooner or later. All right. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to multiply, just like I did before, both sides by 3/4 to get rid of the 4/3. I'm going to multiply both sides by 3/4. On the left side, we should end up getting 3,150 equal to pi r cubed. Now I'll deal with the pi. I'll divide it out on both sides. Divide by pi, divide by pi. When I do that, I am not done with the problem. I am not rounding anything yet. I am writing out this full calculator display when I divide by pi. And now I don't want a square root. I just want to do what I did in the previous problem and take the cube root of both sides. So you can go back to your calculator right now. Math, choice 4. Take the cube root of both sides. It's asking you to round your radius to the nearest tenth. So I'll give you guys a second to do that. Just pause the video. And that's going to end up being 10.0 feet. Not feet squared, not feet cubed. We're just talking about a radius, not area or volume. Just keep it feet as the units. All right. So just using your new cube root button on the calculator. All right, our final one, number 5. This one's a little different. I saved it for last on purpose. All right, find the surface area of the hemisphere. All right, that's a half sphere. And I do not want you to get into the mindset right now of, oh, I'm just going to take my surface area, 4 pi r squared, and I'll just cut it in half. No, it's much more than that. Think about what we've talked about already this unit as far as what surface area is. That's everything showing on the outside of the circle. All right, everything showing on the outside of the circle. When you guys do 4 pi r squared and cut it in half, what you're doing is you're just finding the outside right now of this half sphere. All right, that's what you're doing right now. What you're forgetting, all right, what you're forgetting is the circle that's on the bottom. We have to count that surface area as well. All right, the hemisphere right now is only the green part here. We also have to include the bottom because that is showing. All right, so what should I add to this half a hemisphere one? You should add in the area, and this is a circle, the area of the circle on the bottom. So plus pi r squared. Okay, plus pi r squared. So again, this one represents your hemisphere, surface on the outside, and this is the bottom of it. Because surface area is everything showing on the outside, so that is why I need to include the bottom of the hemisphere. So please watch out that when finding the volume, or excuse me, the surface area of a hemisphere. Volume, I don't need to worry about it. Okay, so the surface area, here we go, 4 pi, diameter is 28, so that's going to be 14 squared, divided by 2, because it's a hemisphere, not a full sphere, plus pi times 14 squared, the bottom of the hemisphere. You guys can go ahead and crunch those numbers, pause the video if you need to. Surface area, 1,847.3 square feet. Please watch out again on the homework this weekend. When you take the surface area of a hemisphere, you have to include the bottom of it. Next, we are asked for the volume, and that's going to be 4/3 pi r cubed, but we are talking about a hemisphere, so we need to either divide that by 2 or multiply it by a half. All right, we don't have to worry about the bottom because, again, we're filling it up, not taking the surface area. So we end up with 4/3 pi, radius 14 cubed, times that 1/2. And again, highly recommend using the fraction template. You can type it in as you see it on your paper right now or up on the screen. And rounding it to the nearest tenth, 5,747.0 cubic feet. All right, from here now, you can go ahead and start the assignment for the weekend. You can work around with other people. Please make sure you're doing the math and other classwork. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.